Hello, and welcome to Voices from the Left, a presentation of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. I'm your host, Craig. Thanks for listening. Our quote, "If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing." Malcolm X. This episode, I'll be speaking with the founder of anarchorange.com about why independent journalism and journalistic integrity are paramount to the information age. Hi, Izzy. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Excited.
me too. All right. So, can you tell me a little bit about your background, like where you're from, your upbringing, how you became a leftist, quote unquote?
Well, it's been a lifelong mission, I would say, of just unlearning all the stuff I learned growing up. I grew up in Orange County, like South County, which is really hardcore, like conservative. I went
Hmm.
to all the Christian schools from kindergarten to 12, but I never really I would be told like things in Bible class and stuff, and I'd be like, okay, but like there has to be an alternative. Like this can't be like some people go to hell, and it's like no, like that's unacceptable. But then I started hearing like an alternative when like social media started popping off, and like I was in high school and already like looking for other things, and I found I found the whole thing that radicalized me with Tumblr, like in 2013, and I saw like all these different uh, groups of people. Like I found like the queer community. I found like different like older people. I mean like just like different perspectives and everything, and I was like there's more to life than like what I'm being told right now. And then I actually know like the moment that I became radicalized. Do you remember Congresswoman or Senator Wendy Davis from Texas?
I don't recall her now.
So in 2013, I think it was over the summer, she did a filibuster for like 13 hours, I think it was, on this abortion bill in
Ugh.
Texas. And I watched like the whole thing, and she wore like these tennis shoes and this pink coat, and um I was still like liberal, and I was like, oh my god, this is women. This is feminism. And then the next year she went to go and run against Greg Abbott for governor, but she lost by like 59% or something.
Hmm.
But I saw that and I was like, oh my god, there's an alternative. And then I found like Jon Stewart, and then like the rest is history.
Right on. Right
And
on.
then after I think it was BLM, and I was coasting like this liberal lefty, and then BLM happened, and I got more into communism, and then I found anarchism like a couple years later. So here I am with my own anarchist publication.
Yeah. Excellent. Um, and you bring that up. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So, according to Wikipedia, independent media refers to any media such as TV, newspapers, or internet-based publications that's free of influence by government or corporate interests. Um, why do you think that is important?
So independent media is important because I don't know like if a lot of people are aware of this. So your favorite newspaper, even like your favorite website, is sponsored by some millionaire or billionaire that gets control over what's being said. And I don't think that's right. Like we should be able to have our own free press, free away from these oligarchs and these billionaires and everything. We should have our own voice. Like freedom of the press and everything is very important. And we're losing it
Right.
due to like companies like Disney, Fox, all of these conglomerates are just taking over and silencing it. And I don't think that's right.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so you've touched
Yeah.
on it a little bit, or people can probably gather why. But so why did you decide to be an independent journalist?
I decided to be an independent journalist because I tried working with some publications, but it was just too like, oh, you can't say that, or like, you can't do this. You have to word things a certain way, like passive voice, or like you have to get both sides. When there are some issues where, yeah, okay, like he said, she said, like both voices like need to be heard. but there are some where the main voice is always being heard, and those that are oppressed are not heard. As you probably know, Gaza and Palestine, everyone knows what's going on with Israel, but the only people reporting on Palestine thoroughly are independent journalists.
Right.
And I think that's something that the world is coming to see, that big media censoring and going on the side with Israel because of so much funding from Israel is going to these newspapers also. And
Right.
I don't think that's right. I think we need to change it and take back journalism because this is dangerous. And
Totally.
yeah.
No, that's great. And to your point about the funding for the papers coming from Israel, that money's a lot of that is taxpayer US taxpayer dollars go to Israel and then comes back
Yeah.
to the United States in the form of lobbying in APAC in particular, the lobbying arm of Israel essentially, right? Um in the United
Mm-hmm.
States, but then they also I'm sure donate to, you know, news outlets, quote unquote. So,
Yeah, I know,
um
right? It's kind of like a weird like handing them money and then getting it back kind of way. Like, oh, we'll give you money to fund, and then they like give the money back for us to like promote, you know? But
right,
there are other things that independent media is really good for, like transparency and accountability. So like I can talk about these corporations and like all these people without like um worrying if I don't get a paycheck because they don't give me a paycheck, you know?
right. Yeah,
And it's really easy to I can be more critical and I can be more open, and I can empower like communities, like marginalized communities that are like displaced or like oppressed from Western governments and the colonizing force that occupies this country right now. And a lot of grassroots movements that start up, they don't get a lot of coverage either. So I'm looking at those two also to like if you have a new movement or not a move like a new charity or like mutual aid group, I can write an article
sure.
and yeah.
Awesome. So, along with having like corporate owned media and, especially if it's funded by, any state media, um, journalistic integrity is lacking generally. Um, and
Yes.
so like why you've touched on this a little bit, but can you add a little bit maybe about why it's important to report facts regardless of how they make people or companies or industries look or feel?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with a comrade the other day. It's very important. I don't know if like journalists understand like how important it is that we do because what you report instantly is people are gonna like take that as fact. Like even if you like backtrack and be like, oh well maybe that wasn't true, they're gonna internalize and digest that as fact. For example, was it New York Times or Wall Street with the baby story, the
Oh,
Hamas one?
the early on in October of
Yeah.
23. It was one of the two. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, like they even like said like, "Oh my bad, that wasn't like true." But everyone still thinks it's true because it's published, it's there, and that's a responsibility that we have to own. Like we have to fact check. We have to do everything by the code of ethics, like journalism ethics. We have to cite our sources. We can't just be searching for a narrative and then post it and then get called out for it later, like that Hamas article.
Right.
Like we have so much like power and a lot of people know that but they don't understand that. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, and especially with the instant, I want to say not gratification, it kind of is, but like the instant access we all have at our fingertips, right? To
Yeah.
information right now, in the way of tablets and smartphones, of course. Um, and it can be hard, when you see
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but it's, like you said, it's important because you, even if you backtrack, it doesn't, in a lot of cases, the damage is already done.
Yeah, like we were so like bombarded with information. All we were just getting dopamine dumped straight into our like head all the time just by scrolling,
Right.
like doom scrolling and stuff. Once you go, "Oops, my bad," update. Like they're already like they moved on. Like, they're not gonna go back and be like, "Oh, what did you update?" They're gonna wait for someone to do a TikTok on it, or like the you know, like they're not gonna go read back for it themselves.
Right.
I mean, the younger generation.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, all right. So there's an article by Nikki Louise for techstartups.com. It's from 2020, and it talks about how 90% of American media outlets are owned by just six corporations. And those are
90%?
yeah. Yep.
Oh my god.
And those are Comcast Universal or NBC. That's one. Disney, CBS, Viacom, which Viacom owns like MTV, and I think Comedy Central, just as an example. News
Oh wow.
Corporation is one, and I think that's the one that owns, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the one that owns Fox, some others, but I'll have all these links in the show notes for people. And then AT&T is the sixth one. Um, so the way this kind of works with that corporate owned media, and then, you know, they are the gatekeepers of the news consumed by most of the American public, right? So if they report something and it's not accurate or it's obviously slanted, um, you know, it affects the vast majority of people, and they get, you know, it's somehow, sometimes it's manufacturing consent for the shitty things the American government does or other governments. But you know, the way I look at it, you know, I don't think it's possible to be objective when you are beholden to the capitalist class if you're a reporter. um do you think it's possible, and if not, why not?
So to be uphold to the like to report and hold them accountable,
Yeah, like if you're beholden to them, like you work for them, like you were
or
talking,
like
they give
no,
you a paycheck. Like how can you be objective, or can you be objective?
I I think you can only be as objective as they want you to be. I don't honestly. I guess the answer is no, because I see a lot of people say like, oh well, they're like a certain reporter like on a certain news channel, like whichever, like oh they're one of the good ones, like they really like call them out, and then they get fired within a month. Like what was his name? Like Mehdi Hassan. Like he was
Yep,
going against what I think it was NBC. It was going against
sounds
what
right.
NBC
Yeah,
wanted to,
yeah. I think
yeah,
he's on
about Israel.
MSNBC. I think.
Yeah, and then he got fired because of all the critical things he was saying about the government, Israel, and you just can't operate freely under control of this capitalist class reporting for them, because you're literally a mouthpiece. Like once you like start working for a major network, you're just repeating what they want to hear. And they have legal teams and all of these people to like look over shit before it gets published. And then you just don't get any in the media training in school. Like you right from day one when you start going to journalism class, you start learning like how can I say this in a way that the government doesn't like wouldn't hurt me for it, or like what I mean, like really
Mm,
soft, like government's your friend because like you need to uphold them responsible, but you can't like go too far over the edge of the left. And
right.
you can't hurt their feelings. And then I start questioning that, and it's like, why would I want to hurt their feelings? They're killing children, they're hurting people, they're arresting, deporting everyone that they deem un-American or illegal, and we just let it happen because we say, oh, supposedly, like, and we use this, they want you to use like harsh language, like against oppressed and marginalized groups in your reporting, so that
Sure.
you can otherize, like, oh, I'm going off on a tangent. They
No,
want you
that's
to
all right.
otherize everyone that these capitals, these capital classes are oppressing, because it makes them look good, and it keeps you a little bit like, um, they want the attention on you as the reporter. They don't want the attention on them. You know what I mean? So they'll be
Yep.
like, so you say like, "Oh, did you see this like story on CNN or NBC?" that was wild. And they don't say like, did you see what the government is doing to these like children in the border and bombing like civilians in Gaza with Israel? And you don't hear that. You say, oh, I saw this on TV last night on NBC, but you don't take the steps to figure out that like NBC is showing you what is happening, but you only take it as NBC is telling you. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
about like if you hear the information, you have to use critical thinking, right? To not always take it at face
Mm-hmm.
value, right? Especially if
Yeah.
there's something in the back of your mind that doesn't make sense, right? Like I think
Mm-hmm.
too many people just take it for what it is. And everybody's guilty of that
Yeah.
at some level, but there's others that are, actively trying to do that to people, and they're the ones causing harm, I think. A lot of it.
Yeah. It takes like a big process just to like make yourself like attentive and unlearn like all these things that you know about media, like from growing up, like with media on TV and everything. Like you have to like separate the reporter from the reporting, and you have to like really like figure out like, okay, the reporter is just a mouthpiece for what this company, like this station, wants me to hear right now, and what does the station want me to hear right now, and or what does this publication want me to hear right now, that they, is there something else going on, is there something going on, why am I hearing this right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah.
For sure. So there's an organization called CAIR, CAIR. It's the Council on American Islamic Relations. And they have an article that talks about how media uses passive voice and headlines to manufacture consent, in this case, for the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza. And as we record this, it's April of 2024. So for those that don't know, passive voice is used to emphasize an action rather than the subject, shielding the perpetrator. For example, headlines report things using active voice, like Israelis were killed or butchered by Hamas, while Palestinians passively lose their lives or die without the attacker being named. And we've seen it in other cases where I know we've seen some headlines where they said, the headline was like, 300 people under the age of 18, you know, lost their lives. Well, that's children, right? Like they're purposely covering it
I know,
up
right?
that it was kids, right? So when
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, yeah. And you mentioned passive voice earlier, and so why in particular do you think that's harmful?
Well, passive voice, actually, it's banned from my publication. Like, you will not find it at all. And I feel like um, it's one of the most dangerous things that we have right now. Like, it used to be when technology wasn't as prevalent as it was today, or as it is today. Like what, like 50 years ago, like all of the news you got was this paper that would come to your door, or the radio, and it was presented to you in passive voice. Like everything's fine, you know. Like we dropped a bomb on Hiroshima, and it's okay because it's, like, you know, like that kind of thing. Like that's the only news outlet you get. You don't get like on the street like TikToks or like Instagram reels like we are in Palestine. And so when you read like at least 70 dead after strike at a refugee camp, like you don't, in Gaza, like if we didn't have that technology that we do now and more of a exposure to what's going on, we would just be like, oh no. But we don't know who did that strike. It just says after strike at refugee camp, the health ministry
Sure,
says. So whatever health ministry that is, we take them at their word because they're a health ministry. But now we know what's going on. Um, and with all this misleading terminology like conflict or clash, like, you know, like what is actually happening. Like it's Israel invading villages and cities. It's not a conflict because they're just decimating everyone, and this false narrative like that shows like Palestinian people like deserving this violence is unacceptable, and it's literally causing a genocide. Like, this narrative has been around for like decades, and it's time
Right.
to stop it. And social media is like one of the biggest harbingers of this. It's because the algorithms and stuff, like, they pick up on passive voice, and that's what is pushed at you because it's what these companies, capital class, want you to read. But for independent media and everything, it's very important to have like your own sources, like your media and your stories, like posted off of social media, so that the algorithm can't bury it. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
And passive voice, yeah, like passive voice, it's dead. I think like we need to stop, and we need a new type of writing style. Because I remember in community college, I did an article on DACA, and
Hmm.
I wrote about how it was right when DACA was ruled unconstitutional. I think it was.
Okay.
It was about a year ago or a semester ago, and they were like, "Oh, it's too forward. You need to kind of be vague with your with your language." And like, why do I have to be vague? It's Republican signed, like, manufactured legislation, and they're like, "Well, like, you don't know that for sure, do you?" And they're like, "Yes, I do. I have the
Yeah.
documents."
Yes, we do.
And yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah,
do.
we do know.
We
And
sure
they're like, "Well,
do.
you don't want to." Yeah, and like, I don't want to upset anyone. I want to upset the right people. Like, I want to upset them so bad. Like, and I think there's like there are media outlets that don't use misinformation and passive voice. Like Al Jazeera is a really good one. I
Hmm.
heard Israel just passed like legislation in their parliament to ban Al Jazeera. So
Yep.
you know that they're actually doing like really good like reporting.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's infuriating. It really is.
I know. Right?
So you mentioned it
Sometimes I just feel
earlier.
like I'm just like yelling.
Right on.
Sometimes I feel like I'm just like yelling at like a wall when I talk to people. I'm like, we can't do this anymore. Like, we need to get angry. We need to post, and we need to say it's wrong, and we can't have this happen anymore. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard. Even when you do that, it gets, like you said, it can get buried.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned this earlier, but you've got your own website. Um, it's
Oh yeah.
called it's can you tell us what the name of it is, please?
Oh yeah. So I have a new website. It's called Anarch Orange, or it's like anarchy with no Y, and you put orange, like ANARCH, orange. So I named it because I'm from Orange County, and it's an anarchist publication. We take no sponsors. It's fully run by subscriptions and donations. Um, Anyone in Southern California can submit anything they want, and I will publish it. It can be fiction, nonfiction, interviews, photos, movies. You actually don't even, I actually changed that rule. You don't have to be from Southern California, you just have to be an anarchist. But Southern California information and media is very highly encouraged, because I feel like we don't have a really good outlet out here, because OC Register is bought out by like Republican led coalitions and everything. Like, and that's our
Gotcha.
big paper, OC Register.
Hmm.
Like, I kind of want to like Anarch Orange like is supposedly the answer to the alternative of that. Like, we don't take any money. You can post whatever you want. You don't have to go to school for this. It doesn't have to be an AP style. One of the biggest questions I always get is like, "Oh, I don't really write well, and I didn't go to school for like journalism, and I don't write well." And it's like, that's okay. This is the voice of the people, and everyone has different levels of writing and skill. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars at a college to become a journalist. You can literally do it today. Like, I
Right.
teach people like yeah, like, I teach people, like, the basics of journalism for free, and it's like, just, like, message me, like, email me, and, like, I'll help you out. Like, this is a skill that is dying, and we are giving to the elite bourgeois so that they can control what we say and hear and what we
Right.
see, but we need to take this skill back and, not have it go to nepo babies in New York, or, like, little nepo babies in Portland, you know what I mean? Like, we can take this back and make something great, and that's what I wanna do with Anarch Orange.
Awesome.
There's no like set like I'm actually like the only like um I guess, quote unquote staff member. Like, I just run the whole website and everything. And I have a couple articles out already. And Craig, you have a new article out. That's gonna be cool.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you've talked about it a little bit. A couple of things, I guess, a couple other questions about the website in particular. So what was like your driving motivation for creating the actual like website itself? Because you talked about how there needed to be, another voice for Orange County. It wouldn't have to be a website, right? It could have been something else. How did you decide on a website in particular?
I got this website. I bought the domain. So I completely own this whole thing. Like, I bought the domain and everything because
Awesome.
like I could literally just do this on Instagram. But you know who owns Instagram?
Yeah,
Is
I do.
Zuckerberg. Is
Right.
Meta. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy
And you
who's
know he lives
building.
in Shadowman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With the macadamia farm for his cows.
Yeah. Ugh.
He's feeding like luxury feed.
Ugh.
But yeah, like he literally owns Meta. He owns Facebook. He owns Instagram and all these websites. And I see people post all the time trying this out, and they get shadow banned or they get suspended within like an hour. And it's like, just come to my platform. I won't censor anything. I won't, unless it's illegal. Like, if it's illegal, I won't post it. But there's
Sure.
some boundaries. But if it's, yeah, but you can post anything you want and then just send it to my email. Because I'm tired of listening to Zuckerberg and doing what he says, and I'm tired of listening to Elon Musk and
Ugh.
whatever he wants to do and launching his rockets up in the air and banning everyone on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I think this is I want this to be a huge turning point for journalism, even if it's just like me and like a few other people. But yeah, I just really want everyone to be able to do whatever they want whenever they want. So I gave a place to do that.
Sure. No, that's
There might be
awesome.
some podcasts, there might be some like series coming out once I figure out how to like upload stuff. But yeah.
Cool. So which topics are most important to you personally to cover?
Personally, I actually have a few videos I'm uploading soon. Whenever I go to a march or a protest, I bring my camera. Um, I bring my camera around and I record and I take some interviews. I haven't been able to edit it because my computer died, and I just got a new one.
Sweet.
So I should have some videos up. Yeah, I should have some coming up within the next month. Um, that's one big thing I like to do. Another one is I like to highlight grassroots movements and just like small little mutual aid groups and like people doing stuff for like the public and just helping out. I did interview this one guy. His name's Christian Suazo. He was the president elect of the student council at Saddleback College.
Okay.
We discovered while interviewing him that Saddleback refuses to put tampons in the bathroom.
Jeez.
Saddleback College is a school, and yeah, he won. Congratulations, Christian. But
Sweet.
yeah, so I want to do updates that's going on at that school, and just like in all over. Like if you're going to a festival or a concert, I encourage you to take photos, videos, write a little paragraph, take some interviews, and I'll post it.
Very cool. So you mentioned that if someone wants to create for your site, they can email you what either the topic or the article itself or whatever it might be. If they don't want to actually create something for you, but they want to make you aware of something, how can they do that?
Yeah, I have a tip line on the same email because it is encrypted. I use Proton Mail.
Okay.
If there is a better one, let me know because it's the only encrypted one I know. But it is Anarch Orange, ANARCHORANGE at protonmail.com. And you don't even have to give me your name. You can just say, hey, Izzy, I have this story, and you don't even have to give me your name. Your anonymity is completely like yours. Everything is sorry, everything is safe with me because part of the code of journalism, the ethics of journalism, is that you keep your sources safe and you never reveal anything. And even then, like I don't ever reveal unless you want me to, even if it's a little bit like a citizen and was like Costa Mesa has said this, or like you just want to be anonymous source, I can just put anonymous source. So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Um, so let's see. And just for those listening, I'll have all the links. I'll have the link to the email in the show notes. I'll have the website, all the articles we've talked about. I'll have all that stuff in the show notes so people can find those.
Oh yeah, I also have Signal. You just
Hmm.
email me and I can give you the Signal if you guys are interested,
All right.
or if anyone is interested.
Sure. And just in case someone doesn't know, Signal is a messaging app that's it has some forms of encryption that people use for typically organizing work for whether it's for protests or union campaigns, things like that, stuff they want to keep out of especially an employer's eye. So but it's available, I think, on most. I know it's available on Apple and on Android. So, and I think you can even use it on a computer.
They do have a desktop version. I use it also, which is good.
Yep. All right. So, what are some other types of projects you're involved in?
I do a lot of community outreach in my county. If you ever see me, come say hi. Right now, I'm trying to start a mutual aid group that does public meals, like in South Orange County. I'm trying to pick a spot. I'm getting some people together. If anyone in the area is interested, let me know. I have a magazine coming out, I think, in the next couple months. I'm not sure when. I worked on the school magazine at Saddleback College over the summer. It's called Orange Appeal. I was the editor-in-chief. I went to Barstow with my comrade from United Electric. We went leafleting when WabTech was scabbing those workers in Erie, Pennsylvania over the summer.
Hmm.
We handed out leaflets saying, hey, the railway is polluting your neighborhood this way, and like WabTech is scabbing, and like what scabbing is and what they actually like are doing. I have that coming out, and I have some stories coming out on my website. I can't really talk about them right now, but you guys should stay tuned and subscribe to my website, and you can find those there.
Awesome.
Big.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Very cool. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
If you are in Southern California, there is a weekly protest in Irvine. We encourage the whole community to show out. It's usually on Truman, like 3 to 5 every Sunday, where we call for a ceasefire, and you just gather and meet the whole community. So I'm always there, and I'm trying to get more people to go. Yeah.
Excellent. Very cool. All right. So where can listeners find you and or your website?
So you can find me on Instagram with Anarch Orange, ANARCHORANGE. And then my website is just anarchorange.com. And then the email I said earlier is anarchorange@protonmail. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
So you can find me. You can talk to me about anything, even if it's not to be published.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, I want to say thanks for coming on the show. And I like what you're doing. I think it's important, as important as you think it is, to make sure that we're getting, actual news out there. And you talked a little bit about mutual aid. I really appreciate that. There's, especially right now with just the corporate greed that's just off the charts. Like there's more and more people that do not have their material conditions met, right? Or their material conditions are degrading.
Yeah.
And it's mutual aid is a great way to help with that. So yeah, that's really great.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm always getting I'm always doing the interviews. I'm never getting interviewed. So hopefully it's good. This was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is great. I appreciate you coming on. And hopefully we'll chat again soon.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. Love to hear from you.
Yeah, you bet. That does it for the show. Thanks for listening. Voices from the Left is a presentation of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. Special thanks to Nick Josephs for the use of the theme song. You can find Nick on Spotify or on the web at nickjosephs.com. Don't forget to rate and review on whichever platform you listen. If you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe at patreon.com/voicesfromtheleft or donate at buymeacoffee.com/voicesfromtheleft. All the links will be in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and solidarity.